welcome everyone, and thank you for joining. My name is Kristin, and I lead training at Totango. And I'm joined today on our panel by Celeena Mohammed, Customer Success Operations Specialist at Citylitics, and Stephanie Keiko Kong, a freelance operations consultant at Yoga Ed. So welcome to you both.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for having me too.
Yes. So you are both Totango customers, or I should say your companies are. So we're really excited to have you here, not only share your experience as consumers of Totango's customer education programs, but also you guys are designing training programs for your own teams. Mm-hmm. So, all right. So let's get started. All right. Today's agenda. We're going to start by talking about effective training and really starting with definitions, getting into some strategies, and then we'll talk about delivering training with particular emphasis, during that onboarding period. And then finally, we'll think kind of beyond that initial training and discuss how we elevate performance and connect training to a sense of purpose. All right, so let's dive into the first agenda item. Developing effective training processes. And before we talk about strategies, I always like to start at the definition because training is one of those umbrella terms that definitely means different things to different people. Even as we were putting together this webinar, we were finding different definitions. So I personally have been doing customer training in SaaS since the beginning of SaaS and software on-premise before that. But really in the SaaS era, I think we see, customer academies, learning management systems. We also see go-to-market enablement. We see employee onboarding, learning and development, help centers, digital adoption, kind of all of those things. But I think what they all have in common, at least those functions, are that I find everyone all refers to those things as training. So loosely speaking, I like to kind of bucket training into these categories, although, lines are never neatly drawn here. So Stephanie, I'd just love to start with you and hear from you how you define training and really even kind of how you think it's evolving beyond these definitions.
Thanks, Kristin. I totally agree with what you said about having a very broad, like kind of an unwieldy definition of what training is and what training means to people. And because that varies so much, let me back up and say the context in which I'll be speaking from. So my current work is with Yoga Ed. It's a digital online education technology company that serves approximately 15 million end users worldwide. And that number continues to grow every month, every quarter. We're seeing big numbers. So the exciting thing is that the reach is really broad. The challenge is that all of this very broad customer base needs to be served by a small but mighty team. We're based in Honolulu, Hawaii, although team members come to us from all over the world. So the typical training, particularly in traditional, quote unquote, traditional education settings, is we're going to go to training and then we're going to be done with training and then we'll come back and share what we've learned. And that simply doesn't happen anymore especially in the digital space. The idea of like going to a faraway well to get the water and then bring it back is just not happening. Training happens, quote unquote, big air quotes, happens on an everyday basis. So when our customer success representatives have this mindset of when is training over? When am I done with the training? When will I have graduated from the training? The answer is, and frankly, never. It's an integrated part of the workday now. As we're building our processes and our future training applications, we want to make sure that the rhythms of training, the cadence of training is keeping up with the pace of progress, even exceeding it. And therefore, it must be a present priority throughout every aspect of the workday. Celeena, does this track with how you're building your training?
Yes, it definitely does track. I'm building also for a small but mighty team. And I think, as we're developing our training program, we're really thinking about designing the program in an iterative way. So, having checkpoints along the way, being open to feedback from your users, because they're the ones going through the program, seeing what could be better, what could be changed, really taking their feedback and doing something with it is really important. So I really think training programs are meant to become more and more efficient as time goes along.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to move us to our next topic, and we're still really in the first agenda item. It's just a heavy one, so I've broken it apart. So both of you are designing training programs for customer success managers or specialists as your persona in your organizations, right?
Yep, that's
okay.
what we're doing.
Yep. And so at Totango, as you both know, this is also one of the personas that we develop content for in our customer training program, which is Creator Campus. And for anyone who doesn't know, Creator Campus is Totango's customer training platform that we just launched in July. And one of the cornerstones about Campus is that it's role-based. So Stephanie, I'll start with you again. Tell me more about kind of how you view role-based training and really just, I don't know, how important it is to kind of get into the shoes of the person performing in that role.
Yes, I'm smiling super big because Creator Campus was instrumental in my own learning and super fun, if I can say that from a learning perspective. So I mentioned, as I stated in the beginning, Yoga Ed hired me as a consultant to be like outside in window on their tiny team. So I had the pleasure of sort of role playing as each member of this team that is set to grow. A little bit more context is Yoga Ed has seen a 500% growth in the sector that I'm working in just in the past year. And largely that growth has happened in the past 5 months. So as anyone managing that scale of growth knows, the infrastructure doesn't always grow at the same pace. So me coming in and being able to go through Creator Campus at a pretty fast pace was instrumental in helping to build that infrastructure. I can't say enough about it. I'm just going to be a little brag session for the Totango campus, if I may. It was like watching, like YouTube binge watching cooking shows. I don't know if anybody does that. I do that. It was like that. It was that satisfying and bite-sized and kind of relaxing for my mind because I could just let the Totango experts that lead the webinars take me on this journey. And then there were live webinars so that I could play along in our own Totango instance. So my entry point to the ecosystem of Totango was very, very like smooth. And then my first like play around in the sandbox experiences was similarly fun and well supported. So that's been my experience. Celeena, how about you?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I love what you said about, building the infrastructure to keep up with the growth. I think we're also in that kind of mindset. And Creator Campus really was a fantastic addition to get me up to speed as a new Totango admin, as someone building out, a first CRM system. I started configuration of Totango before the campus went live. So, figured it out. It was working fine. But once the campus came live, it really turned the light bulbs on for me. Everything started to make sense. The dots started to connect. Like everything, I found a way to do things better than what I was doing before. So it just really allowed me to become way more efficient learning the Totango platform myself. And then to add to this, these role-based training modules, they're for users, admins, data admins, which I love because not only can I take my own courses, but I can add the user training to my own training program. And then also I can keep track of what my CS reps are interested in. So maybe they might be interested more in the data aspect and want to learn more about that. Maybe they're interested in learning more about the admin side of things. What's great is that the Creator Campus has courses for all of these things. If you're interested in something, you can learn that. So I think it's really about, getting the feedback, seeing what your CS reps are interested in too, and learning how to level them up as users.
my gosh, I might cry because it's just so wonderful to hear how you guys are using it, because I think this really highlights to me the strategy for effective customer training, in that, Totango, the vendor, provides these fundamentals. So you can either use that for yourself or your teams, but really you guys have taken the torch then, and you're training your teams beyond the fundamentals. You're addressing questions like in your own environment. And I think that's just a great model for partnership, between the vendor and these customer champions like you guys, for driving more training among the larger team, and then really not having to reinvent the wheel as much as possible. Like you guys are doing a lot. So, whatever Totango can give you to then, provide to your larger team, the better. So I think that's really my favorite part of campus, is exactly seeing like the champions take it and run with it beyond. All right, so let's assume that people have participated in our training program. So either customer training, internal customers. How do we know when we've hit the mark and that training is effective? And not just for the business, faster time to value, retention, growth, but like actual change and performance for the people involved. So either Celeena or Stephanie, you guys are designing these iterative programs. How are you knowing what to change and when to change it?
You just said a whole bunch of buzzworthy phrases right there. So there's another one that Yoga Ed uses a lot, that is moving the needle. And moving the needle just immediately suggests data. So it needs to be measurable. We can't just have a feeling of, oh yes, I'm doing more, I'm being more productive, I'm getting more done. It has to be data-based. And one simple measurement, working with a lot of variables, is simply time. Does it take less time than it did prior? And so we have a really simple metric of tracking the time spent a particular customer success specialist spends on a particular task. For example, CS could spend 15 to 20 minutes, let's say, working on a touch point for a particular client. When we systematized everything within the Totango ecosystem, magically, according to my team, Totango allowed that to happen in a matter of seconds. So we have templates, and it can be a manual trigger, go, and these things happen in much less time. My measure for success, kind of thinking about how do we know when these things are working, is when the team members would come back to me and say, I think I'm doing it wrong. That was too fast. That seemed too easy. What am I missing? And of course, the beautiful thing about Totango is that we could go in and say, nope, didn't miss anything. This is exactly what went out. This is the log. This is the history. And we had proof positive that the subjective experience of it was too fast, it was too easy, actually meant that we were making significant progress in the right direction.
Ooh, I love that. Very I think you had mentioned earlier when we were talking, like a healthy distrust is a good sign of effect that your users are trained and they're performing. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That skepticism of, is this really working? When that turns on, I feel like we're doing a really great job with efficiency measures.
Yeah, and I love that aspect of time to measure how effective your training is. At Citylitics, we also have a saying, we want to raise the bar. So I think, raising that standard for training is always important. And I think time, and also for us, ease of use is really important. We really want to make our workflows less manual and a little more efficient. This can mean fewer clicks, less time spent, going back and forth between a spreadsheet, Slack, Asana, whatever it is you use. We really wanted to make the workflow as easy and streamlined as possible for our CSMs. And I think, having that source of truth, that one place to go, like Totango, really helps to reduce the amount of clicks and just have all our information in one space. And I think, the idea here is as your workflow gets easier, you can just consider that a win by itself.
Wonderful. Anything else to add here on effectiveness?
Yeah, I think just in terms of consolidating our efforts and creating a more streamlined path to value, I think a lot of CSM teams can relate to what I fondly refer to as the Google Drive wormhole. That is like a standard operating procedures document that links out to a bunch of different other playbooks, and those playbooks have other links in them that have like extenuating circumstances and a checklist. And this represents what I think of as one-dimensional thinking, that is in a straight line, check, 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 check. When we add another data set as like a control aspect, that might be two-dimensional thinking. And what we're doing with Totango, I'm just going to jump forward here, is four-dimensional thinking. So we have one-to-many, many-to-one, et cetera, relationships plus the time domain. So we can automate touch points, we can have these systems built in, and then let our CS team trust that this software is going to do what the software is good at doing. That is make database track database trends and then report those trends to us in a timely fashion that allows us to leverage those numbers to make decisions as the human beings that we are. So I'll say that again in a terse way. We trust that the software is good at the thing that the software is supposed to be good at, tracking time, analyzing trends, reporting these patterns. And that allows the humans to be good at what the humans are good at, making decisions based on those trends. We're telling our team they're not supposed to crunch the numbers. Their job is to care about the customers. And the more time they spend like cranking the widgets and counting the beans, the less time they feel effective in their work. And that, as we know, feeling not effective in the work is the ultimate damage to productivity and, frankly, employee retention.
Yeah. And I think tying it back into training too is now you can focus your training efforts exactly what you're talking about. How do, the things that the humans are supposed to be doing now that they don't have to be doing these other things, where can we continue to elevate and train and tap into that area for, elevating their own conversations? And that's where the training focus, I think, goes next after, functional, how does the software work?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. All right. So next agenda item, these last two should go quick so that we leave time for Q&A. Time to value. So where in a new customer's journey, or even like a new rep's journey in your case, where does training fit? And this is interesting because for Totango, I think we're still finding the balance between layering in our self-paced training with our live one-to-many training program. So, what are you guys seeing as critical to increasing that time to value, or, how much time you're even allocating to your training?
So I think in the context of onboarding for my team, I've really allocated approximately 1 month for training. So this is just starting off approximately 1 month. Now, this includes the training plus time to think about reworking, gathering feedback, answering any questions. It really speaks to the iterative process we talked about before. So this means that training time can be reduced as the program becomes more and more efficient, as you're implementing and collecting and implementing constructive feedback from your team. Another key factor, for one, is making sure CS reps have the tools that they need. So documentation, videos, outlines, expectations of what they're supposed to do, and access to resources. But I think it's also important to consider that training can be self-serve. In this work from home environment, at least for my team, digital really comes first. This is what they want. They don't want to have to wait for a meeting just to know what they're supposed to be doing. They want to get started. They want to get going. And I think for something like this, training can definitely be a digital model. CSMs also in particular are in meetings all day. A lot of times, they don't want an extra meeting added to their day. They just want to get going. So I think it's important to take this self-serve type training into consideration. And I think also breaking down training into sections or topics to foster a more incremental type progress, because CS reps, they're always busy and you have to find ways to not overwhelm them when it comes to training. You don't want to add a million things in a week on their day. So I think it's really important to break things down and have checkpoints in between. That really helps a lot.
Celeena, as you're talking about incremental progress and checkpoints, I'm imagining, like, I am an elder millennial, and so I played like Super Mario Kart
Yeah.
And going through the, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there another poll we can throw up there? How many people? Anyway, who was your writer? Mine was Koopa. Anyway, so the going through the gate and going, okay, I have made it this far.
Yes.
Is a really important inclusion, because there's that body feeling of like, yes, I've done something. And when we going all the way back to the very first topic, how do we define training, and training being this ongoing part of the daily workflow? Having those touchstones is really, really important to a human being's sense of progress. So even in this digital first approach, where we're maybe working from home, sitting at our computers, that traditional expectation, varying depending on audience and background, of, aha, I have achieved this thing, I have this measurable result for my training effort, is a crucial component. I want to name that there's still possible friction or resistance to a self-led approach that is, go watch a video, learn on your own, can be a hurdle for some team members. So there's also an opportunity to build that comfort level within the Totango ecosystem itself. So for example, with the teams that I work with, I built in little Easter egg milestones. So in Totango, I'm sure you've all seen, you can put in like a mark an event, or have a specific trigger based on any criteria that you choose. So for us, when an account moves out of the onboarding stage, there's a little special thing that I won't share here, but it's a little like feather in the cap of, oh, I've made this milestone, and you actually have to check it done. Like, yes, I have celebrated.
It feels good to check that box, right? That's our approach at campus too. We have badges at the end of each course. And when we were thinking about that, because we wanted them to be short and we can do one and, come back a couple days later, but we call that a confetti moment. Like it's just a nice, like you said, marker or milestone along the way.
Oh, getting those badges made my day. It was like the best part of my day when I did those. It was so fantastic.
Same. I have so many.
Our creative team is amazing. The partnership there, because it's been so fun to think about the personas and really put, like some effort into the design. So yeah, the badges are also one of my favorite components of campus. Okay, so we're getting close to Q&A. Last piece here. Let's talk about where we go from here, kind of whether you're still in the onboarding phase or just what comes to mind when you think of elevating performance.
Elevating performance is relating everyday tasks to a sense of purpose. That is everything that we're doing in customer success, making our customers feel special, making them feel seen, anticipating their needs, not just reactively responding to their pain points. And once we start treating our customer success teams as the human beings, as the beating hearts and human beings that they are, we understand that the motivating factor, the like master key, is relating everyday tasks to that sense of purpose on a consistent basis. So it's not just what impact am I having, how am I moving the needle, but what does that mean for me, and what does that mean for us as a company or as an organization?
I really love that idea of connecting productivity with purpose. I think it's just such a great way for CS reps to stay motivated during their day-to-day. It can be a lot of the same things over and over again. And I think it's a really great way to help them achieve their purpose. And with, you talked about a 4D type system before, I think this really allows us to be more proactive and, as you said, less reactive with our customers' needs.
Thank you again for joining us, both Stephanie and Celeena. This was an amazing conversation. So happy to have you as customers and just, thought leaders in this space, and appreciate everyone else's time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.